Tonight, on Wednesday night, inshallah. What's it going to be about? You can look at the screen. Okay, it's going to be about the Day of Judgment, right? When we talk about the Day of Judgment, there are many different things we need to talk about. One of the conditions of a person being a believer is he has that iman in the Yawm al-Akhir. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is iman? What is Islam or iman? When he talked about Islam, he said, Islam, he mentioned the 5 pillars. When he was asked about iman, he mentioned the 6 pillars of faith. And one of the 6 pillars is أن تؤمن بالله وأن تؤمن باليوم الآخر, to believe in the last day. In Islam, the last day doesn't just mean believe in the Day of Judgment. It means that we need to believe in everything that happens after death. Okay? We need to believe that there will be punishment and there will be pleasures in the grave. Okay. So if the car is parked in the imam spot, move the car, please. Okay. So you have to believe in what happens after death, right? That the person, a righteous person, will have pleasures in the grave, and a wicked person will be punished in the grave. You not only have to believe in the Day of Judgment, you need to believe in the signs of the Day of Judgment as well. What types of signs are there for the Day of Judgment? Go ahead.
I heard one was like 12 hours.
Okay. Okay. There are 2 main categories. Okay? There's minor signs and there's major signs. Most of the minor signs have happened. Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them have happened. The first sign was the Prophet ﷺ coming. The Prophet ﷺ said at 1400 years ago, he said that me and the Sa'ah are like this. And he put his middle finger and his index finger together. So it means the Day of Judgment is very close. Okay? So inshallah tonight, what we're going to do, and the plan for the Halaqah series, is tonight and part of next week, we're going to cover some of the major signs. And then the following week, we're not going to have I'm not going to be here. And the last week, inshallah, we're going to talk about what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment. Why is this is the sun, if you look in the background, why is the sun there? Why did I choose this picture? Okay, because on the Day of Judgment, the sun will be right over a person. Right? It'll be like a mile away. And a person will be sweating in proportion to the sins that they committed. Some people, their sweat will reach their ankles. Some people, their sweat will reach their waist. Some people, their sweat will reach their throat. And some people will be drowning in their sweat because of the sins they committed in the dunya. Another reason that the sun is here is because one of the major signs is that the sun will rise from the west. Where does the sun rise from today? From the east, and it sets in the west. But on the Day of Judgment, right before the Day of Judgment, the sun will rise from the west. Okay, bismillah, so let's start. There are 10 major signs. Okay? There are 10 major signs. What are they? Hudayfa radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet ﷺ was in an apartment. He was at his house. And he heard the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they were talking about something. And when he heard them talking, he said, what are you discussing? What are you talking about? So they said, we're talking about the Sa'ah, the Day of Judgment. So the Prophet ﷺ said that the last hour will not come until these 10 things happen. And if you look at the numbers here, right, don't think that the numbers are in order, meaning that this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. No. The Prophet ﷺ in many hadith, he just told us 10 things that's going to happen, but he didn't tell us the order in which they're going to happen. The Prophet ﷺ said that there will be a landslide in the east. There will be a landslide in the west. There will be landslides in the peninsula of Arabia, right? In Jazirat al-Arab. You know where Saudi Arabia, Yemen, that area is? There will be a landslide there as well. In the east, what can we refer to as the east right now? Like what's in the eastern hemisphere? China. China is considered the eastern hemisphere. We're considered in the western hemisphere. So there will be large landslides. What's a landslide? Yes or no? this is the landslide. No. What's a landslide? Have you guys ever seen like, can you imagine? Have you guys ever seen an avalanche? What happens when an avalanche happens? It falls, what falls? Snow. So people who are even trying to walk, they're covered in snow, right? So when the land starts to do that, and people can't walk on land, they basically, every place they walk, it becomes like a sinkhole. You guys know what a sinkhole is? Right? Imagine that there's things on the ground that are sucking the people in. So they're going to be large things like that. They're going to swallow, the earth is going to swallow people up in the east, in the west, and in the Jazirat al-Arab, in Saudi Arabia and that part of the world as well. So these are 3 signs right there. Another sign is there's going to be smoke. There's going to be smoke that's going to take over the whole world, right? Not only in one location. You know, somebody, if you have ever been to LA, there's something called smog over there, right? It's like smoke and fog put together. No, this is something which is going to be so strong, it's going to take over the whole world. It's called a dukhan. The Dajjal. The Dajjal is one of the major signs of the Day of Judgment. And inshallah ta'ala, tonight, we're going to spend the majority of the time talking about the Dajjal because there's a lot of misinformation or wrong information out there about the Dajjal. There will be a beast on earth, right? This beast, it will come and brand people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give this beast the ability to say or to know that this is a believer and this is a disbeliever. So it will brand people as well. Ya'juj and Ma'juj. We'll talk about, inshallah ta'ala, Ya'juj and Ma'juj and their tribes next week, inshallah ta'ala. The rising of the sun from the west. The fire. There's going to be a fire that's going to come out from Yemen. And that fire is going to drag and carry all the people to the plain of Arafah. The plain of Arafah is where the judgment will take place. And the descent of Isa alayhi salam. We all know, as Muslims, we believe that Isa alayhi salam is going to come back and he's going to kill the Dajjal. Right? We're going to go into more detail about him next week, inshallah ta'ala. But just know that these are the 10 major signs. Okay, order of the signs. The order of the signs is unknown. The Prophet ﷺ said different hadith that these 10 things are going to happen, and he gave a different order. In another hadith, he gave a different order. So the order, what's going to happen first? What's going to happen second? We really don't know. Some of them we do, and the majority of them we do not know. Can anybody give me an example of 2 signs which we know the order of? Very good. The Dajjal and Isa alayhi salam. The Dajjal is going to come, and then Isa, and then he's going to be on earth for a period of time, and we'll talk about what that time is, and he's going to cause mischief, and he's going to be able to do certain things. But then Isa alayhi salam is going to come, and Isa alayhi salam is going to kill him. And then Ya'juj and Ma'juj are going to come. So at least these 3 signs, we know the order of. There are different things that will occur on Earth and on the solar system. Okay? Because the sun, when the sun rises from the west, does that affect Earth? I mean, does that have anything to do with Earth? Or is it independent of the Earth? It's independent. So, we say that, as Ibn Hajar rahimahullah said, that in terms of the signs of the Day of Judgment, the first sign on earth is a Dajjal. But the first sign in the heavens is the sun rising from the west. Signs will happen one after another, like the beads of a tasbih falling. Like that's why I put the tasbih in the back, right? Imagine a tasbih. When you open it, when that chain is broken, what happens to the beads? How quickly do they fall? Is there time between them? They fall one after another. So when the first sign happens, then immediately after that, other signs will begin. So again, our job is not, it's not important to us about when the Day of Judgment is going to happen. There was a companion that came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked, when is the Day of Judgment? So the Prophet ﷺ, he shifted his attention. He said that it's not important when it is. He asked him the question, question, what have you prepared for? Because when one of us dies, when does our day of judgment begin? As soon as we die. We can't come back to the world and do more good deeds. So it's very important that we take advantage of the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and do as many good deeds as possible. So today, inshallah, we're going to talk about Dajjal. And you guys, alhamdulillah, are still young, so you guys haven't really gotten exposed so much to these things. But there's a lot of information that's false about Dajjal, and we want to clarify some of these things, inshallah ta'ala. Who is a Dajjal? How many of you have heard about him before? Okay, inshallah, most of you did. The Dajjal is a person, okay? He's a person, he's a man, who will come at the end of time to test people's faith. Any people or group that says that Dajjal is not a person, but it's a system, or it's a symbol, this is against the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of you might have heard of that stuff, Illuminati and stuff like that, right? And these things, this is against the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? When referring to these things, a very important principle is that we cannot speak without the Prophet ﷺ as a reference. Why? Why can't we speak without the Prophet ﷺ as a reference here? Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Very good. These are things, this is knowledge of the unseen. This is knowledge of the unseen. This is knowledge of what's going to happen. None of us can go and see or even believe that someone else knows the future. Even the Prophet ﷺ, did he know the future? No, he didn't. Except for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him. You know, sometimes there are these things that fortune tellers and different people, you know that Mayan thing about the world's going to end in 2012? Right? As Muslims, we can't believe in these things. Right? You know, sometimes we say that, you know, what's the big harm? I'm just messing around. I'm just going to go see what they say. Right? We cannot even do that. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever goes to a fortune teller, just goes to him, his prayers won't count for 40 days. And in another narration, whoever believes in what he says has disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because time and time again in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the only one that knows the future and the unseen is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody else knows. Nobody else knows. So we can't say for sure that this person or this is going to happen or this is going to happen unless we have revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either in the Quran or through the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described him as a man, right? He said, but the Masih al-Dajjal is blind of the right eye, as if his eye was like a swollen grape. Okay, so, few things to keep in mind here. A lot of times people, you guys know what a cyclops is? What's a cyclops? Not the one from X-Men. Right? The one eye, right? So a lot of times, when people refer to the Dajjal, they say that he has one eye. Does he have one eye? No. How many eyes does he have? 2. Why? How do we deduce this from this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? It says right. So if there's a right, there must be a left. Or else he would say his eye. Right? He has a right eye, he has 2 eyes, but his right eye, he can't see out of it. It's like a swollen grape. Okay? He also described him as having very curly hair and being blind of the right eye. So, again, we're going back to those people that say, no, Dajjal is not a real person. It's a system, and it's a way of thinking, it's a lifestyle. No, the Prophet ﷺ described his eye, described his hair. So, without a doubt, in our Islamic belief, the Dajjal is a person. There's no doubt about that. The Prophet ﷺ also described him as having the letters of Kaf, Fa, and Ra between his forehead. And every believer, whether he's illiterate or literate, will be able to read this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give the believers the ability to read this. So, what's important here is a very important point, is that sometimes a pure person, we may think that this person is jahil, they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write. But in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that person can be very honorable and respectable. Why? Because he's a believer. So it matters and it's important that we all work and strengthen our iman. On the other hand, a person can be very, very educated in terms of the dunya. But if he neglects or rejects Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he neglects or rejects his parents, or he rejects those people that have helped him along the process, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has no value. So it's not about your educational status at all times, but it's about your iman. If you have iman, you'll be able to see that those letters between the forehead of the judge. Evidence for all of this can be found in Sahih Muslim. Sahih Muslim is an authentic book of hadith, which you can read about to see what the Prophet ﷺ said about the Dajjal. And this is what our sources are, okay? Whenever someone tells us something about, oh, the Dajjal's going to do this, or he's going to do that, or this is what it is, and shows you videos and things like that. First of all, don't watch his videos. You'll get confused. Second of all, know what authentic sources are and not unauthentic sources. Authentic sources are Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abi Dawood, like the books of hadith, and the Quran, of course. Okay. Dangers and warnings about the Dajjal. The Prophet ﷺ warned about him many, many times. Dajjal, what does Dajjal mean? Anybody heard this term Dajjal before? Good. You heard it before? Okay. Dajjal means, okay, if something is pure evil, will people do that action? Why not? Why not? Because people can recognize this thing's nasty, right? It's nasty, it's evil, it's not going to benefit me. So what Dajjal does is that he takes something which is evil, and he takes something which is pure evil, and he mixes some good things with it. So people become confused. They focus on those things which are beneficial, but they forget, or they get confused about the evil that is there. So he's someone who will be very smart and cunning. So he spreads confusion and hysteria amongst the people by mixing truth with falsehood. And we'll talk about how he does that. The Prophet ﷺ said, there is no matter from the creation of Adam until the day of judgment, which is greater, a greater fitna or a greater test than the Dajjal. So it's something which is very major. And one of the reasons is because once the Dajjal comes, and then people, their iman is weak at that time, it becomes very difficult for them to come back on the straight path. That's why the Prophet ﷺ was so worried and scared about the Dajjal for his ummah. Every prophet warned his people about the Dajjal. Prophet ﷺ says from Al-Bukhari that every prophet, from the beginning of time till the Prophet ﷺ warned his people about the Dajjal. That shows how great of a fitna or a test the Dajjal is. Okay, when will he appear? He will appear towards the end of time when people stop mentioning him and warning people about the Dajjal. The Prophet ﷺ said, when the people on the khutbahs, they stop talking about him, then know that his time to appear is very close. Right? I don't know, how many of you in your life have heard a khutbah about the Dajjal? Okay, maybe 2 people out of 20, 25 people, 3 people, okay? So, the imams, like myself included, we need to start talking about him more to make the people aware that he's going to come. And because we left talking about him, that means he's very close to coming. What will he be able to do? Why is he such a fitna? There are many things that he'll be able to do. And remember that, can he do these things by himself? No. Why would you say no? Okay. He can do these things only by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him the ability to do these things? To test us. To test our iman. So we know we're going to be tested. We have the answers for the test. So we need to prepare for it. If we don't, we have no one to blame but ourselves. Okay, what will he be able to do? He will be able to travel like rain, which is followed by a strong wind. Meaning that he'll be able to go on earth very, very quickly to different places. Okay? Another thing he'll be able to do, he'll be able to make it rain. And he'll be able to make crops grow. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that only He has the ability to do that. So sometimes when people see that and they think that the Dajjal himself has the ability, they become confused. You understand how they become confused? But we have to understand that the one that gives the Dajjal the ability to do this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, He will be able to cut a man into two parts and put them at different distances and then bring them back together. Can He do this by Himself? No. Allah gives Him the ability to do this. He would have two gardens with Him, right? He would have two things with Him, gardens with Him, one on His right, one on His left. And one would be fire, and one would be water. But in reality, the fire would be water, and the water would be fire. So the Prophet ﷺ said, if you're tested with this, then jump into the fire, and it will be a cold, sweet, cold drink for you. But if you jump into the water, what's it going to be? It's going to be a pit of fire. May Allah protect us. Yes? Not right now. Inshallah, we'll talk about that later. I'm not sure. Okay. He will not be able to enter Mecca and Medina. So some people are saying, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll just go to Mecca and Medina. Right? If he can't come there, we'll go to Mecca and Medina. Anybody know what the problem with that statement is? Not a fire, but some close. Mecca and Medina will take out all the hypocrites and throw them out. Right? So, if a person is a hypocrite, even if he's Mecca and Medina doesn't want to get it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give Mecca and Medina the ability to take the hypocrites and to throw them out of Mecca and Medina. So what do we need to do? It's not about where you are, it's about we need to work on our iman. We need to work on our iman, and inshallah ta'ala, towards the end of the presentation, we'll talk about ways which we can protect ourselves from the Dajjal, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, I'm going to read this hadith to you. And this hadith is a very important hadith. It goes and gives a lot of information about the Dajjal. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the Dajjal is going to come. And when he comes, a person from amongst the believers would go towards him. And the armed men of Dajjal, who are the armed men of Dajjal? Is he going to be alone, or is he going to have supporters? He's going to have supporters, like his soldiers. They're going to come to that person, and they're going to stop him, and they're going to say, where are you going? And he's going to say that I intend to go to the one that is coming forth. I intend to go to the Dajjal. But they're going to come, and they're going to try to stop him. And he would say that when they said, don't you believe in our Lord? Who are they referring to as their Lord? Who? Dajjal. No, they don't believe in Allah as the Lord. These people believe in Dajjal as their Lord. So he says, there is nothing hidden about our Lord. Right? He says, no, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would say, kill him. Then, some amongst them would say, has your master, Dajjal, not forbidding you to kill anyone without his consent? They can't kill him just because they want to. They have to go get Dajjal's approval. So when they go to get Dajjal, they take him to the Dajjal. And when the believer would see him, he said, O people, he is the Dajjal. He is the one that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam warned us about. The Dajjal would then order for breaking his head. Right? He'd order, break his head. And then he would say, catch hold of him and break his head. And then he would be struck even on his back and his stomach. Right? They try to break his head, they try to hit him on the back, hit him on the stomach, right? They're trying to torture him. Then the Dajjal would ask him, don't you believe in me? So then he said, you are a false Messiah. He would say what the Prophet ﷺ taught him about the Messiah, the Dajjal, right? Then he said, he would then order him to be torn into pieces with a saw, parting from his hair up to his legs, right? To cut him in half. Then he would say, stand. And he would stand erect. He would come back to life. After he was cut with the saw from his head to his feet. Don't you believe in me? And then he'd ask him again, that don't you believe in me? Meaning that how would I be able to do this if I wasn't a God? Allah protect us. What did the man say? Don't you, when he was asked, he said, it has only added to my insight concerning that you are really the Dajjal. Now I know for a fact, even if I was doubting before, now I know for a fact, without without a doubt, you are the Dajjal. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us this is what's going to happen. Then he said, O people, he would not behave with anyone amongst people in such a manner after me. He warned his people, don't be afraid of him. Yes, he's going to be able to do this to me, but he's not going to be able to do this to anyone after me. Why was he able to do this time and time again? Because no one stood up for themselves. No one stood up for what was right. Even though they might have had doubts, they didn't believe in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So Dajjal would try to catch hold of him so that he should kill him again. He tried to kill him again. Remember, he killed him, he split him in half first. The second time when he tried to do it, the space between his neck and collarbone would turn to copper. Right? He wouldn't name it down. The part where he tried to cut him, his neck and his collarbone, the space between, it turned into copper, meaning he couldn't kill him. Then he would find no means to kill him. So he would catch hold of him by his hand and feet and throw him into the air. And the people would think as if he had been thrown into hellfire, whereas he was thrown into Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ said that this person would be the best, would be the most eminent, the best amongst the shuhada, the people that are martyred for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This person, this shaheed, would be the best. Why would he be the best? Hamza. Okay, mashallah, very good. Many good things that you said. The first thing is that he stood up for what was right. He stood up against oppression. And the thing that he also did was that he was an inspiration to those that came after him. Right? He was the first one that did something good. And then people followed that good example. And this is something, like, the greater the difficulty of some actions, the greater the reward. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that the biggest fitna from the time of Adam a.s.'s creation till the end of time would be the Dajjal. Therefore, the person who stood up to the Dajjal, he would be the greatest of shuhada. One important point. As Muslims, we will face challenges. But we don't shy away from these challenges. We embrace them and we face them with iman. Think about some of your heroes. I want to talk a little bit about who are your heroes in life? Parents. Okay, parents. Someone up there.
The Shaykh.
Well, it's not. Anyway, who else? Come on, some heroes in your life. They could be athletes, it could be anybody. Who do you guys look up to? Okay, fine. Why do you look up to him? Okay. The brother said, awesome Muhammad. Okay? He's not here. I don't know if he could hear out. But why do you look up to him? Why do you look up to people like that? Because they're nice. Hamza.
You know, at the end of the day, like, he puts the youth before himself,
okay, very good point. He puts the youth ahead of himself and he makes sacrifices, right? Does he not have his own challenges to deal with? But despite those challenges, people embrace the responsibility that comes with that. Right? I think you guys know Helen Keller, right? Everybody know Helen Keller? Well, who was she? She was deaf, dumb, and blind. But why do we talk about her like she was someone who was very inspirational, even though she was not a Muslim? Because did she let those challenges handicap her and say that, no, I can't succeed in life, I can't do anything? No. She dealt with the challenges, she persevered. She worked hard to get through those things. All of us sitting here, we're going through different challenges. And we will be tested. The more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves somebody, the more He tests them. Right? Sometimes we think that, oh, why am I being tested? Does God not love me? No, it's the opposite. Allah loves you so much, that's why He's testing you. Because He knows that you can deal with it. The Prophet ﷺ said that the most tested people are the Anbiya, the Prophets ﷺ. Then the people that come after them in faith. So as Muslims, yes, we are going to have challenges. And this is such a great challenge. But we have the ways to deal with these challenges with are by returning to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, how to protect ourselves from the Dajjal? The first thing, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to make dua for protection against the Dajjal every time. And tashahud, and you know he said at-tahiyat, before the salam, he would ask Allah to protect him from the Dajjal. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to seek Allah's protection against the Dajjal in tashahud. Okay. Another thing that we need to do, and inshallah I'll put the dua on there. I think the dua is coming next in the next slide, inshallah. Another thing that we need to do is learn about our faith and be a believer. Why was the person the greatest shaheed of all time? Why was he able to recognize the Dajjal? Someone else, I'm already answered. Maz. Why was he able to recognize the Dajjal? Excuse me? Okay, he recognized him through the fitna he created, but did he know some signs? Hamza, help out.
So isn't it like one of the signs is on the forehead? Some people say like it will say the job or something.
No, say kafara. But go ahead. Okay, the eye. What else? Very good. He knew what to look for. He knew what to look for. Right? Sometimes we go into a situation and then we start to think, oh, what am I supposed to do here? Sometimes, you know, have so many times I get emails from people who have gone to do Umrah. And they ask me, what am I supposed to do? You're asking now. Right? You should know what you're going to do before you go into that situation, right? So similarly, the time to protect ourselves from the Dajjal is not when he comes. It's before that. The time to prepare things is not when we're about to die. It's before that. So similarly, that shaheed, he knew what to look for because he had knowledge. He believed, not only did he have knowledge, he had that information, but he believed in that information and he trusted the Prophet ﷺ's words more than he trusted himself. And that's what we need to do, is trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trust the Prophet ﷺ. Every believer would be able to recognize him. What does that mean? Why is that important? What do we need to learn? What do we learn from that?
That all the true believers of Islam would be able to recognize the Dajjal because of the signs that they have learned. Okay, only true believers of Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be able to recognize the Dajjal. Very good point. Yes?
We want to be a believer.
There you go. That's the point. We need to do our best to be amongst the believers. We need to do our best to be amongst the believers, right? So how did the believer in the previous hadith recognize the Dajjal? Talk about that. Another thing is learn Surah Al-Kahf. Learn Surah Al-Kahf. The Prophet ﷺ said that if you come, we're going to talk about that long hadith. If you face the Dajjal, read the beginning of Surah Al-Kahf on him. Meaning on him when he comes, if he comes in front of you, face to face, start reading the beginning of Surah Al-Kahf. What are you going to do? Are you going to be like, okay, hold on a second, I got to go open up the most path, I got to go find, no, the lesser blocks, I have to go? No. You should know it at that time, so you're able to recite it right away. And inshallah ta'ala, if you make an effort now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you now and then. Hamza? Yeah. So at least in one narration, it's the first 10 ayahs. In another narration, it's the last 10 ayahs. So the scholars say, just to be on the safe side, try to learn all of it. It is long, but the first 10 ayahs are better than nothing. Okay? This is the dua for protection against the Dajjal. It says, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min a'adhab al-qabr, min a'adhab al-jahannam, wa min fitnat al-mahya wal-mamat, wa min sharri fitnat al-masih al-dajjal. Oh Allah, I take refuge in you from the punishment of the grave, from the torment of the fire, from the trials and tribulations of life and death, and from the evil affliction of the Masih al-Dajjal. Every time, before the Prophet ﷺ said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, in salah, he would ask Allah's protection from these things, showing us how worried the Prophet ﷺ was about the Dajjal. Okay, this is a long narration. It's in Sahih Muslim. It's kind of small. Inshallah, when you get the slides, you can read it in more detail. I'll go through it for right now, inshallah. And Nawas bin Sam'an reported that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that one day he mentioned the Dajjal. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he would mention Dajjal frequently. Sometimes he would mention it so that the people said that, if you read the narration, it said that we think that he was present in some part of near clusters of date palm trees. We thought he was in the bushes. That's how much the Prophet ﷺ emphasized the Dajjal. At other times, he didn't talk about it that much. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ about this. So the Prophet ﷺ said, I harbored fear in regard to so many other things besides Dajjal. There are other things that I'm worried for you about besides the Dajjal. Like one of the things the Prophet ﷺ said that he's worried about for us is shirk. Shirk al-asghar. What is shirk al-asghar? Anybody know? The Prophet ﷺ said, I fear this. This is so hard to detect. It's like a black ant on a black rock and on a black night, on a dark night. Okay. So some people may say, no, it's impossible. It's impossible to detect it. No. If you know what to look for, you can go and you can detect it. But what is riyah? Anybody heard the term riyah before? Or read the what? It's doing things that you're supposed to be doing for the pleasure of Allah, but you're doing it for the sake of people. Basically, you're showing off to people because you want the reward not from Allah, but from the people. You want people to praise you. You want people to talk about you, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to praise you. So Prophet ﷺ feared that for us as well. So Prophet ﷺ said that if he comes, and I am here, meaning Prophet ﷺ is there, he said that I shall contend on your behalf. I will fight against him for you. But if he comes, and the Prophet ﷺ is not there, okay, why did the Prophet ﷺ say this part? Did he know when he was going to come? No. Therefore, the knowledge of when the Day of Judgment is going to happen, and when these signs are going to happen, is not to any other creation. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. So Prophet ﷺ, going back, he said that if he comes while I'm not there, a man that's content to defend his own behalf, Allah would take care of every Muslim on my behalf. Meaning that if we're Muslim and we follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah will help us. The Dajjal would be a young man. Again, he's a man, not a system, not a way of thinking, it's a man. With twisted, contracted hair and a blind eye. I compare him to Abdul Uzza, right? He said a person of that. He who amongst you would survive to see him should recite over him the opening verses of Surah Al-Kahf. If you see him, recite Surah Al-Kahf on him. Then where is he going to appear? He would appear on the way between Syria and Iraq and would spread mischief right and left. Islamic fasad, wars, battles, destruction. This is what he's going to do. O servant of Allah, what do we do if we see him? What do we do? Stick to the path of truth. We said, Allah's Messenger, how long would he stay on earth? The Prophet ﷺ said that 40 days. One day like a year, and one day like a month, and one day like a week. And the rest of the days would be like your days. So look at the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Right? How did they calculate? What did they worry about as soon as he said that? They said that if he was there, Allah's Messenger, would one day's prayer be enough for the prayers of a day equal to 1 year? They started thinking about salah. Even at that time, when one day would be like 40 years, they started thinking about salah. Why did they start thinking about salah? It's the number one thing. That's what's going to get you through the difficulties. You know, a lot of you might be going through different things in your life. And all of you are. I might not know about it. These brothers, no one else here sitting here might know about them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about them. Not only does Allah know about them, Allah is the only one that can provide you with the solution and the cure. So, even when things get so difficult that one day will be like 40 years, then you should still pray your salah. And make sure you give priority to your salah. So the Prophet ﷺ said, no. You know, one day is not enough. You can't just pray one time for 40 years and be like, I'm done. No. The Prophet ﷺ said, you must make an estimate of time and then observe the prayer. We asked Allah's Messenger, how quickly would he walk upon the earth? Then the Prophet ﷺ said, he would walk like a cloud, driven by the wind. He would come to the people and invite them to a wrong religion, and they would believe in him and respond to him. He would then give command to the sky, and there would be rainfall upon the earth. And then it would grow crops. Then in the evening, their pasturing animals would then come to them with their humps very high, and their udders full of milk, and their flanks stretched. Meaning, their animals, they used to be weak. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him permission to test the people, they would be full of milk. They would become thick and juicy so that the people could sacrifice them and eat them as well. So he goes, and this is the majority of the people that he goes to. This is their group. But there is another group. There are other groups that he goes to as well. He would then come to another people and invite them. But they would reject him, and he would go away from them, and there would be drought for them, and nothing would be left with them in the form of wealth. So it's a test then, right? The people who believe in him, they're getting all these things. But the people who disbelieve in him and reject him, they're going through difficulties. But despite these difficulties, what do? He would then walk through the wasteland and say to it, bring forth your treasures. And treasures would come out and collect themselves before him like the swarm of bees. Imagine if there's like some barren land, there's no crops, nothing there, and then he goes to it and tells it, bring out gold, silver, gems, and they would come and they'd fly around him like they were bees. This is the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, again, to test the people. Then, he would then call a person, and this person was a youth, right? A little bit older than you guys, not too much older than you guys. But what was his qualities? He was a youth, and then he struck him with a sword and cut him into 2 pieces. And he made these pieces lie at distance between the archer and his target. How many of you have seen bow and arrows? You guys see bow and arrows? So you have the bow, and then you're trying to shoot something in a far distance. Imagine that. Imagine the top half of his body, or the right side of his body, let's say right side of his body, is over here. And the left side is 25, 50 yards away where you're trying to shoot that target. And then he says, and then he would call that young man, and he would come forward laughing with his face gleaming with happiness. The person, when he comes back together, he's laughing, and he's happy. Why is he happy? Because he's not dead. More important than that. Remember the last hadith we talked about? After he cut him, what did he realize? And what did it confirm? Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, now he knows for sure that this is the Dajjal, without a doubt. Right? Because sometimes we get whispers and we're not sure. But now he knew and he confirmed. That's why he's smiling. That he knows that this is the Dajjal. And it was at this very time, when that person confirms that this is the Dajjal, and then in another hadith he throws him into the thing, at this time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to send Isa alayhi salam. And he's going to send Isa alayhi salam, and he would descend at the white minaret in the eastern side of Damascus. So where is Isa alayhi salam going to descend? Where is Damascus?
Damascus is in Syria.
Damascus is in Syria. So Isa alayhi salam is going to descend in Damascus. And not only do we know where he's going to descend, we know that exactly where. The white minaret in the eastern side of Damascus, and we know what he's going to be wearing too when he descends. He's going to be wearing 2 garments, lightly dyed with saffron, and placing his hands on the wings of 2 angels. He's going to be coming down with 2 angels, and what color are his clothes that he's going to be wearing?
Saffron.
Anybody know? They're going to be dyed, right, with saffron. Saffron is like, you guys know what saffron is? Saffron, you guys, all of you eat it. Right? So So saffron, it's going to be dyed with that. So it's going to be close to a yellowish, orangish type. So he's going to have his hands on the wings of two angels. When he would lower his head, there would fall beads of perspiration from his head, and then he would raise it up. Beads like pearls would scatter from it. Every non-believer at this time is going to smell an odor. And that odor itself would die, and his breath would reach as far as he would be able to see. He would then search for the Dajjal, and then he would catch hold of him at the gate of Lud, right? The gate of Lud is a known place, and he's going to kill the Dajjal. No one else besides Isa alayhi salam can kill the Dajjal. Then the people Allah protected would come to Isa alayhi salam. Remember those believers, the followers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Those that didn't give in to the temptations of the Dajjal, they're going to come and become the followers of Isa alayhi salam. And Isa alayhi salam, he would wipe their faces and would inform them of their ranks in paradise. And it would be under such conditions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would reveal to Isa alayhi salam these words: I have brought forth from amongst my servants such people against whom none would be able to fight. That these people, no one's going to be able to fight them. And take these people safely to Tur, to Jabal Tur. Right? They're going to go to the Jabal of Tur, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to send Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to pick up from there next week. That what is going to happen when Ya'juj and Ma'juj are going to come, and how are they going to be destroyed. And then very quickly, inshallah, we're going to go through the next few signs. And the week after that is going to be, I don't want to say this, but it's like we're going to be on the Day of Judgment. What's going to happen on the Day of Judgment?